Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Parker's Garage. So today I'm going to go through the story of how I come across not only my AE82, but the one that I found with all these amazing parts on it. Like, for what it was at the time, it wasn't the greatest, but for the money I spent, I guarantee you, hands down, no one is going to get a better deal than what I got on this car. So I originally come across my A82 from my brother, John. I was up hanging out with him up the Sunshine Coast, and he mentioned about this little Corolla with a 4AG, and I honestly did not know a lot about them, but we decided anyway, might go for a bit of a have a look, see what we could sort of go for. So I went and had a look at the car, which I'll show you just after this little briefing. Went and had a look at the car, and automatically I just fell in love with it. It was awesome. Like, just to show, like, it does have some rust, but in saying that, looking at the car, it doesn't get more much like my personality. It is like, the car suits me and to the way I am. So every time I drive the car, it's awesome. There's no better feeling than a car that complements your own personality. So I come across the car. The guy wanted $2,500 for it. At the time, I was more than happy to pay $2,500, and then I pulled out the old haggle skills, and I ended up getting it for $1,700. So that was really, really good. And that was my first car was actually an EV Falcon, but this was my first car on the road that I actually got to drive and get my license and my manual license and so on. It was also the first car that I ever beat a turboed Subaru in. No hate on Subarus, but your Foresters are fucking slow. It was probably one of the coolest things ever. But being as it was just a standard 4AG. It had 375,000 kilometers on the clock when I bought the car. So I drove it day to day, to and from work. Before I even had my license, my brother Zach would drive it to car meets for me just so I'd get out. And we used to just cane the shit out of it day in, day out. And had a bit of a whoopsie one day up the Sunshine Coast. I was about to go ahead and do a movie with a friend of mine, going for a bit of a drive. And it was a little bit wet, so I was being a bit silly, and I was coming out of where the Puma is at Glasshouse and onto Steve Owen Way. It was a bit wet, so I gave her a bit of a clutch kick and just sat on limiter for a little bit too long, and it made a really weird noise. So I backed off, got out of it, and I thought, oh, hang on, something's not quite right here. I pulled over and the car was hunting. I can put a video in. It actually sounded really good. It sounded cammed as shit. It ended up blowing a head gasket. So I ended up buying an engine from Cairns, which was 4AGE big port, so a first gen motor with unknown kilometers, fully standard, unopened. He compression tested it for me. It was pretty lazy. I think it was 150 psi across the board, which, I mean, for a 4AG is not good, but for a 4-cylinder turbo isn't really that bad. So I figured, why not? It should last. If it did blow up, I had 2 spares sitting there that I really didn't need. So I put the time in. I think the first turbo setup was absolutely abysmal. It was terrible. I had terrible lines running for a turbo drain. It looked absolutely shit in my eyes. So the first time around, I just put it together as fast as possible to get it done, because I really, really wanted to drive the car. I really wanted to just sort of experience it, get it tuned. So by that point, I had put the new motor in, put the turbo setup on, and I was actually out riding at a friend of mine's house. And I thought it'd be a good idea. We had seen the car, and he had like a tiny little jump near a little creek bed of his, and I had a bit of a whoopsie and hurt myself. And as I hopped up, I actually seen this little red AE82 just chilling in a paddock surrounded by grass. And I figured, I was like, oh, I don't know this fella, you know, just walked straight into his yard and had a bit of a look. I popped just had a bit of a scope around, nothing weird. I did pop the bonnet. I had a bit of a look because I noticed the turbo badge on the back of it. Now I'll put some photos in of what it actually is. Just be in this next one here. Pink skies twisted up with the blue. Pretty much what I did was, once I seen what the car was, I went to the older gentleman and I asked him the sort of money figure that he was chasing, and he told me to throw out an offer. So, mind you, at this point, I'd seen it had Tasmanian throttle body. It also had Microtech LT8S with a turbo timer and so on, and a igniter pack and so on and everything. And all up, it had a Garrett 3076 turbo, and at that point I was like, fuck, this is like, oh, pardon my French, I figured this guy's going to be asking quite a substantial amount of money for this car. No, that's right. And I figured, why not just throw a ballpark out there? I figured, all right, I'll offer him $500 and see what he says. I said $500, and he pretty much just was like, oh, done, shake your hand. So I was pretty much back the next Tuesday with the money. With my brother's AU wagon. We attempted to tow the car home. It was dirt nasty low. It was actually, it was really, really low at that point. And we pretty much looked like we were doing a power skid down the street because of the weight of the car as well as the trailer. It was making the sidewalls rub on the guards because he got that, that hella flush fitment. And no, all jokes aside, it was pretty bad. We ended up having to pull over. We waited on the side of the road for probably about an hour and a half. I called one of the guys that I know that does some fairly cheap towing, and he towed it to a house for $75. So after that, I decided, hey, why not? Let's start digging into it. So at that point in time, I'd only pulled the motor out of my other car. It was just sitting there, so all I really did was decided, just started hacking at this thing, pulling every good part that I could find out of it. And I made the decision to just go, all right, let's get it out. I learnt as much as I could, as fast as I could. It taught me a lot, really. I just jumped straight into it. I had a little bit of help from my brothers and my dad, but once I had got into it myself, I just